with Jojo going to LEC, I feel like I have a home team now in LEC.
Yeah.
So it's kind of fun watching watching him
son.
play there. No, not a son. Kobe's trying to get us in on this. We're not paying your child support, Kobe. You're the one who's gonna have to cover those payments by yourself.
Hello and welcome back to The Dive, driven by Kia, Season 9, Episode 18. And our first news for today is some very, very, very important news. Our son, our collective, our hero, our best mid laner ever, our first export ever, Jojo has won the LEC.
I was like, I have no idea where you're going with this.
It felt like when he left, we were sending off our little kid to like school for the first time, and he was.
I mean, he's not my kid. I don't know if you're the father, but Meteos.
I don't have any ownership of him.
Okay, you guys don't feel any familial bond with Jojo. I felt like we were sending off one of our own to conquer Europe.
Yeah. For
Well,
sure.
I think it's cool. He went off to Europe and he won and stuff, but I don't know if I call him my son.
I don't know about all that, but
It's also early. I just need some more caffeine. I don't know.
No, I mean it's really cool because honestly, it's like when I'm casting LCS, LTA, I never have a favorite team because I'm just kind of
unbiased.
Yeah, well, but honestly, straight up, it's
same for me.
It's less of an altruistic true, less of an altruistic reason. It's not some like holier than thou. It's just I want whatever team is doing well to do. Like I just want teams to do well, basically, because I want our teams to do well internationally, right? Like that's literally all I care about. Like it's fun to watch our teams do well. I don't care who does, and then whoever does well regionally, I cheer for them internationally because I just want them to represent the region well. But with Jojo going to LEC, I feel like I have a home team now in LEC. Yeah. So it's kind of fun watching him play there. No, not a son. Kobe's trying to get us in on this. We're not paying your child support, Kobe. You're the one who's gonna have to cover those payments by yourself. And yeah, it's cool. And he's Canadian, which I love. So it was sick seeing them beat KC the first time. Was like, okay, that's pretty cool, and then they actually were able to qualify for MSI, get top 2, and then in the finals I didn't really have any expectations, but it was really cool seeing them win. And I think Jojo was the best performing mid laner in the LEC in the playoffs, pretty easily. I thought he gapped Vladdy. I thought he played really well against Caps, played a bunch of different champions and stuff. So it's cool because he was getting a lot of heat after his stint with Cloud9. And obviously, like they didn't do as well as they would have wanted in Split 1. So I thought it was really exciting to see him do well in Split 2. And it's like a Canadian winning LEC right before the first ever Canadian international tournament. So pretty cool for him too, to actually get to go to Canada for MSI when we've never had an international tournament there before.
True. Yeah, I mean, I think it goes to show how much harder NA is as a region. Because, this is probably how Koreans feel going from Korea to other regions. You could be like,
True.
You could be okay in your region, not bad. Like no one was calling Jojo bad or anything, but like he didn't have the best results. Then, you go off to an easier region and oops, I won the whole thing.
Yeah, just like that. Just imagine if we sent more people, We just had to send one over there to conquer Europe. It was so easy.
I did.
Had to send Kobe's kid over.
Okay, what about like nephew?
That's closer. Yeah.
Better? Because we're definitely like unk status.
Yeah.
So we're
okay.
All right. That passes off. Okay, but I really liked all the interviews afterwards too. Like they were so happy. You could tell it meant so much to them.
Yeah.
Like Jojo, it has been a long time since he's won. Like APA was tweeting out, he got some funny tweets in and stuff. Because he kept on beating Jojo when he was here, and then went off to LEC and stuff. But just like him and El Yoya at the end, especially, like, oh man, they were just so happy, talking about how this one meant so much more than any of the other ones that they won, and how hard they've worked, and no other team has like worked as hard as them this split, and they really had to earn it. So I thought it was super cool vibes from the team overall, but also obviously because
this makes me want to keep up with LEC more personally, because like I haven't been watching it super closely because it's like really early.
Yeah.
But it sounds like it's pretty competitive right now. Like for the longest time, it's been just G2 dominated, right? It's like, oh, yep, there's LEC and G2's winning again. And like they replaced their jungler and whatever, and they're still winning. But now it seems like there's, G2, Fnatic, KC.
I don't know about Fnatic. Let's not be ridiculous
He's being
here.
nice. He's being nice.
They're in the league. They're there.
They are in the league.
Yeah,
That's as far as you can go with Fnatic.
Yeah.
They're not in the running to win, but they are in the league.
for now.
And there's Jojo. It seems cool.
It's true. It makes it way more interesting, right? Yeah, because this is the first year in what feels like forever that it hasn't just been guaranteed G2 win.
I mean, I've just always been tuning in for the Jojo games and then also G2 games because I was like, well, G2 is always going to be at the international no matter how the regular season goes or whatever. So, I'll track along for now.
It's also makes Jojo one of 6 players to win both NA and EU. So Sven, Perkz, Broken Blade, Niski, and Bwipo are the others that he joins, and obviously the first NA player to go and win another region. So that's pretty cool. And this was like such a random stat, but I thought it was kind of interesting. He was, I think I read that he was the first player ever to win 2 different regions within 6 months of joining. So like because he won his first split in NA when he came in, he won spring with EG and then goes there and wins. Obviously it's now a 3 split system, but won both regions pretty quick after joining. So pretty cool. It'll be interesting to see how they do at MSI. Speaking of some of the other players on that list, Perkz just announced his retirement. One of those other 6 players that have won both NA and EU. Obviously, the Perkz legacy over these last couple of years hasn't been as shining, I guess. But
I'll always remember him for beating RNG though.
Yeah,
going really deep at Worlds.
And he was in the argument basically. I feel like for a while, people were more on the Perkz as the GOAT than Caps was the GOAT for Western League. I think Caps has now, long surpassed him because he was able to maintain that level for so long and keep winning. But Perkz is definitely one of the greatest Western players ever. Was a part of some of the the best accomplishments. Obviously, was able to win MSI, go deep in Worlds a bunch of different times, role swapped so Caps could join. Played AD carry at an incredibly high level, was able to, do really well internationally on 2 roles. So he was just a really, really fun player to watch. And kind of like one of those guys that I feel like if you are a newer League fan, maybe you don't get why he, kind of has that reputation. It's because I feel like I had that realization when we were talking about Uzi, right? And, so many people I think didn't realize why Uzi is considered the way like he is and why he was, being brought into the Hall of Legends and all this sort of stuff. And by the way, Pastry Time is doing a video on Uzi, interviewing some old pros and things who people have played against him over the years to kind of give more context on it, kind of similar to replay files, which should be really cool. But yeah, no, it's definitely Perkz had an incredible career.
Yeah, it's always interesting. I feel like it raises the question of, like you said, his last few years haven't been that great, but it's one of those things like as a pro player, should you stop while you're ahead? Are you thinking of like your legacy? Because it seems like there are a lot of players who've taken that route. It's like they have success and then going into a new year or whatnot, it's like, if there's not a spot on the top team, like, do I want to continue playing? Because I kind of respect it, honestly, going into like a team that might not be that great and trying to see if you can make an impact on it. And, sometimes it's not going to work out. But yeah, I think it says a lot about a player just for their love of the game. It's like sometimes they just accept that, okay, this might make me look worse and my legacy might be, like damaged or whatnot. But it's like they just want to play. Yeah. So. I don't think it takes away from all the accomplishments he's had. And like
Jordan on the Wizards.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Nobody's sitting here being like, "Ooh, man, like he would have been the GOAT," but like that last year he played, like, ooh.
Yeah, I know people always like to, remember it as the perfect like clean cutoff or something. But yeah, like you're saying, I don't fault anyone for like continuing going, and even if there's like a peter out at the end and it kind of small fall off and stuff. I'm not bothered by it, especially if you continue to get offered large sums of money. And so I'm like, love of the game, love of the bag. Go ahead, keep on getting it.
I mean, it's a job at the end of the day, right? And it's Perkz retires now, and how old is he? Probably mid-20s or something like that.
Set for life.
There you go. And it's but you need to be able. Yeah, he's 26. So it's like you need to be able to, if you're going to retire there, unless you have something else you're going straight into, or unless you made a crazy amount of money, you do need to keep making money, right? You know, and most pros aren't going to have made, you know, these like giga contracts. Obviously, he had like a crazy contract with Cloud9, and then also was repeatedly getting, you know, $1 million plus from Vitality, I think, after he went back to EU. So like he had some crazy huge contracts. So if he does well with his money, he should be fine. But, you know, talking about like a lot of players, it's like, should you retire when you're at your peak? Well, unless you have something else that you'd rather be doing or you really want to be going into, most people get into gaming and pro gaming because they love it, right? So it makes sense you'd want to keep doing it. And unironically, you need to make money. Like people need a job. So that's where your skills are. I think there's nothing wrong with it. But it's like, especially in League, it's such a team game that someone can look incredible on one team and then join another, and like your skills don't have to have fallen off that much to look really bad comparatively, right? You know, it's like you put Faker on the worst team in LCK and stuff, he's gonna look a lot worse. It doesn't mean that he's necessarily changed from one day to the other. I'm not saying that you can't have players that shine sometimes on really bad teams, but it is pretty rare for someone to have like a really standout season on a horrible team, you know? I do think it's pretty difficult to look really good.
Especially if you're role swapping and role swapping back and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I don't think you actually can look good on a bad team. I think even
Lyra.
Who?
Lyra. You remember on Envy? I think he literally won MVP and they were like 10th.
I don't remember that.
That was and he won MVP, right, Kobe? Yeah. And that was like the craziest 1v9 split I remember. Like they were not a good team. I don't even know how many games they won. Like in my recollection, they won maybe like 6 to 8 games or something like that out of, 18 or whatever the schedule was at the time. But every game that they won was like the most Lyra 1v9 of all time. And it was like if he didn't have 5 kills by 5 minutes, their team was just dead in the water. And so it is really rare, but there are examples for sure. It's hard. It's really hard.
Yeah. And I don't know, like if you're not winning, then like, are you really playing that well? I don't know. I
play a great game and lose the game.
I think most of the time people are, if they're looking good, they're just KDA playing. Like they're not taking enough risks or whatever.
But you don't think you can play well and lose?
I think you can, but I think if you're like legitimately on a bad team, then I don't know. I think it's just GG.
Well, I mean, yeah, you might lose the games, but it doesn't mean that you played bad.
Yeah, but I don't know. I feel like the weaker the team you're on,
results based.
Somewhat, but I think you have to take more risks if your team's weaker, and that will naturally make you not look as good.
Yeah, of course. It's much harder to look good on a bad team. Yeah. I agree
but
with
like,
that
if you're actually playing to win, I feel like you have to like, so much of it is like walking the line, but then it's like you start taking more risks and like going past the line, like doing things that you can't get away with and like you'll get punished for it, but you're at least trying to win. So I don't know. I just have more respect for a player who's going to get their hands dirty and like try to actually get a win than someone who's just like trying to look good on a bad team, like lose but look good.
Mm-hmm. Sure, but I think those are two different things. I still think that you can play really well and not be just playing for KDA and be on a bad team and still lose the game, right? Like if you put Chovy on Disguised, he's still going to look pretty good. Like
maybe. You haven't seen Chovy on Disguised?
I think
let's test it out.
I think Chovy's going to look pretty good. Like, I'm not saying that, it makes them win worlds or whatever, you know what I mean? But it's like, you can still tell when a player is really good, I think. It is much harder to succeed, obviously. And it's like, it's 1,000 times easier to look good when all your lanes are winning and like every play is going to work. But I still think you can definitely stand out when it is a bad team.
It's just way harder.
Way harder.
Yeah.
The new patch just came out. It is patch 25.12. This is not going to be the MSI patch, but it is obviously MSI changes are going to be in it, and they're kind of like slowly working towards where they want the MSI patch to be. There is a lot of changes in this patch. Most of them seem relatively minor. There was kind of like this mini rework of Rammus, which honestly, I have no idea if this is going to be like good or bad for Rammus. I know your read was that it looks pretty bad.
I don't know. So I've played a decent amount of Rammus. I'm not like a Rammus enthusiast because he's kind of trash, but I don't see much about these changes that's going to make him like good. I don't know, because so right now he's kind of in a state where I don't think he's that bad in the
He's
sense
just
of
so
like
situational. I think.
Yeah,
What they're trying to address, right?
Yeah, so I think his issues are that he's like his clear speed's terrible. It's actually like one of the worst clear speeds in the game. And I don't really see how these changes are going to help him. Like, I guess he got a little bit of attack speed at level 1 and his base AD, but he lost the like unhit armor damage from his passive. He lost the attack speed on his E. And so I don't know. I mean, obviously it's a lot of changes. It's hard to truly know without trying it out, but I just don't see these changes really helping him, because it'll make him, a little bit better against magic stuff. But I don't know. Whenever I would play or see a Rammus, I'm not sitting there being like, oh man, he's just getting owned by AP. That's why he's weak. It's more just like he's just getting kited and he's useless because he's Rammus. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. We'll see, but I'm not too optimistic looking at it that it's different.
I've always thought that he's like pretty fun, but the clear speed is always the super annoying thing, because it's like then you're super reliant on your ganks working, or you're super reliant on, haha, I got you in champ select. You guys picked all AD and I picked Rammus.
It's not even just all AD. It has to be all. It's like melee AD based champions. Yeah. It's good if they lock in like Zed, Yasuo, Riven, but then it's like, okay, anything's good against that comp.
Yeah.
So I don't know. We'll see. I would like for Rammus to be, because he is pretty fun. I think the biggest thing to me that stands out is that he's not going to have the lockout between his Q and his E, which it wasn't even something that I consciously thought about, when you play him, but it was there. Like you would hit someone with Powerball and then
make a flash.
They'd like flash out or something before you could taunt them, and it'd be pretty annoying. But yeah, I guess you can do that now. So maybe, yeah, I think that part could actually be pretty big, just like being able to CC chain better. He is one of those champs that's like kind of forces people to take cleanse, because if you don't have cleanse and you just get like taunted by Rammus, you're gonna die probably.
Especially if you're like a kind of squishy melee who's like dependent on mobility and stuff like that. Like you mentioned, like Yasuo and champions like this. I always think like Camille and whatever, all that stuff too.
Yeah, but I don't know. I'm not too optimistic about it, because I think one of the awkward parts of him is like when you play Rammus, it feels good to max Q, right? Because the cooldown gets low, and so you can actually like use it on your camps and then use it for ganks. But what you mostly see Rammuses do is just max E, so that like it's easier to kill people. And then you get in this weird spot where it's like, okay, now I have E max, so I really can't use my Powerball on camps. So I'm like getting around the map slower, and it just seems like really feast or famine. It's like you need your ganks to work, or you're not a champ. So
I'm a Powerball maxer anyway. I don't care. Or at least I put like a decent amount of points into it first.
Yeah. I don't know. I wouldn't mind playing some Rammus.
Yeah, I think that they are going to try and make it strong as well. So I am definitely going to try it. And if they do make it strong, that is the type of champion I think is really fun. Like I love being frontline super fast, just speed in and start fights. So that one I think is cool. Definitely going to test it out. As far as actual MSI things that are going to be effects here, there are a decent amount. Because Aatrox already is getting played, and we had Bwipo on the analyst desk this past weekend, and when Aatrox got picked up, he was like, yeah, wow, I don't know why they're buffing Aatrox on live. It's already good. So Aatrox is getting some like pretty legitimate buffs too, with the healing increase for the passive, and then the E as well. Like I think Aatrox is going to be very good for MSI. And I assume we are going to have some very good Aatrox players going to MSI. So I'm pretty excited for that one.
It always just seems dangerous when it's like healing buffs on these like drain tanky champions to me, because if he hits that certain point, it is so frustrating where all of a sudden he just pokes you one time with his passive like plus Sundered Sky and he heals for 2,000 or whatever in ult. And you're like, well, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really good point.
And like Deathbringer stance healing buffed, and the healing with the E champion damage ratio also buffed.
Yeah, and all that's amplified when he's ulted and
Yep.
whatnot. And then you can get like Visage, you can get like Revitalize. It can get out of control fast for sure. So I don't know. I guess that's why they're trying to go like incremental changes on Aatrox.
Yeah.
But we'll see. We'll see. I feel like top lane's usually pretty fun to watch when Aatrox is good. Like, you get those huge moments.
Yeah, he's such a cool. I just love the design as it being like this kind of like fighting game, almost kind of, and combos and sweet spots and stuff.
He's so unfun to play against, though.
I have no problem actually playing against Aatrox.
Laning against it, though?
I complain about a lot of champions, but I
Wait, really?
I
feel
Aatrox.
like of all the top lane, like there's a lot of stuff top lane that sucks to lane against, but like Aatrox,
I just find him unfun, where it's like he gets some CDR and then you're just, for the rest of the game, it's like you're just playing this mini game of like you have to just dodge the sweet spots constantly. I feel like
I like it.
that's the gameplay.
yeah. Yeah, except
What do you like playing
the
against?
cooldowns get too low. I mean, I don't mind playing against most stuff. The only
Vayne? Demo?
honestly,
That-
I would way rather play against like Teemo or Tryndamere for sure.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I find those less annoying. I mean, Teemo in some specific matchups is horrible, but if someone's just like blind picking Teemo or whatever, they're gonna get slammed. Even Vayne can be pretty horrible in some matchups for sure. But also, I feel like Vayne dies one time and then her game is just over.
As far as the other though, there was a long list of these MSI pro play ones. Azir obviously is mainstay in pro play, so that one is a surprise to nobody. Gwen, I'm always happy to see. I would say it's actually, it's not for So for pro play, it's top lane, but for solo queue, jungle has a higher win rate. So that's why I'm always happy to see them too. I'm like, thank you, pro top laners for helping deal with the solo queue jungle Gwens as well. To get a little extra tip there. I was so sad about the Shen one though, because I started spamming Shen.
You should say what the changes were, by the way, because you're like, oh, there's a Gwen one and there's this.
There's so many of them though. I feel like we might take too long of a time, but
I mean, they're kind of small. The Azir one is just like his attack speed per level, I think it is.
It is movement speed also. So the Azir one that movement speed as well to me is always like,
oh yeah, move speed's big. It's move speed and attack speed per level, which I think those can definitely make a champion feel terrible pretty quick. Which I think move speed's a good nerf for him, because 335 it's going from 335 to 330. He's already so safe with his E and whatnot. Like he can dash so far. And the fact that he never really needs to press his E in lane, he can just exclusively save it for defense is probably gives him too much safety.
Yeah,
which is generally like what you see him do. So I think that'll be good. I don't know how much this will actually nerf him out of pro play though, because generally, like from what I've talked to people, everyone just kind of agrees that he's sort of Cassidy-esque in the way he plays, where he's completely useless early. I was talking to was it actually on the dive? Was it Inspired saying that like he reminded him of Cassidy? Yeah. That was one of the ones that came to mind, where it's like, you don't want to play with him because it's really annoying. You don't get to do anything, but playing against him is also obnoxious because it's like eventually he'll do stuff.
I mean, every pro tells me that they still think Azir is like just monstrously, disgustingly OP as well. Like for a pro play, like it's just always this champion that I think is so hard to balance, because it's like at the pro level, people play really well. And they just like constantly are just pushing waves. They're not killing anyone early and stuff, but you just hit a certain point where now you're Thanos, and it's like it's really hard to punish him at the pro level, because he's very safe. He has really long range. His DPS is incredibly high. He can disengage. He can engage. Like he can kind of do everything if you play him really, really, really well. And I feel like that's just always been the Azir problem for so long. And I don't think there's any way this pushes him out of like MSI or anything. It'll just make him maybe like even slower to get online, I guess, because you get a little
Dude, it's so funny if you look at Azir's history and the amount of things he used to have in his kit. Like, his E used to knock people up if you ran into him.
Yeah.
You remember the W used to detonate on towers?
Yeah,
like the soldiers could dedetonate on towers. You could just nuke towers with your soldiers.
Yeah. He's a strong guy. He's an emperor for sure. We'll see. I don't think it'll change his priority too much, but there are some other pro play ones. Like I think the Rumble nerfs it seems kind of big to me, less percent health damage on his Q, which makes him really good against everybody. I think his E slow is going down as well. So, I think that could be big. I don't know if it'll be enough to knock him out of pro play or whatever, but
It's definitely interesting.
Could hurt his matchups for sure.
A ton of the champions that are popular in pro right now are getting hit, right? Like Varus is getting nerfed. Yorick is getting a pretty significant nerf, actually.
Well, are you going to say what the changes are then?
Sure, yeah. Well, I'm still just saying that it's at least changed. I mean, Varus is losing 3 armor. Yorick, the change I think is actually really big. At max rank your Q, you lose 20 damage. And then the Mistwalker changes is basically like they're putting it more towards scaling. So it used to be that like you got 100% of bonus attack speed. Now it's 8% to 80% attack speed, like total attack speed. So it's weaker early. It's supposed to be stronger later, at least if you're doing the like attack speed based builds like Triforce and stuff. But definitely I think the 20 damage off of your Q is pretty huge for an ability that you're spamming. So those seem pretty significant. But there's so many different champions that are actually being touched that are in pro play already. There's Callista getting nerfed with like less base health, longer damage on the Q. The soul change basically got like reverted again for like the 100th time for Senna's back and forth.
They love that one. They love the levers, dude. I don't know. If I was a Senna player, I would find it so tilting to just be like, my champion is actually live or die by this lever that they just love cranking it all over the place. It's like, I don't know. I feel like that's just the goofiest way to design her, but it is what it is.
Nico got nerfed as well, Q and W damage. So they're obviously focusing a lot of stuff on pro. And I mean, the interesting thing to me is if any of these changes on champions that aren't currently that popular in pro are going to push them in. Like Jack's getting more attack speed on the passive. Mord is getting a Q
I think
buff.
that Jack's one's actually huge.
Lee Sin gets a Tempest Cripple buff. So like they're clearly trying to push some of these in.
Yeah. Jax is going from, I think it's like 3.5% attack speed, level 1 per stack to like 5%. And that thing stacks, what, like 8-10 times or something? I don't really play Jax that much, but yeah, that's a lot of all-in damage. You know, you just start hitting the wave and all of a sudden, like, oh, can't fight him anymore. Can't all-in him. He's too fast. So I think that could be pretty strong.
Talia ones, because Talia is like up there on Azir tier
really popular
with me, and that is like the 2 magic resist and a bit of damage out of your empowered Q. Again, these are not going to push. This is not going to push this champion out. Talia is still very, very, very good, but it is balanced, right? And it is these like the small steps. So usually the cadence for the balance patches that they've talked about aiming for is to have these big ones with a bunch in it. And then the next one is going to be the follow-up smaller patch to try and fine-tune right before MSI. So any things that they feel like they miss with, maybe Rammus or something like that on this patch, then they have the next patch, and we'll see the follow-up adjustments. But they're definitely going like very wide with this to hit a lot of champions. And it doesn't seem like too many of these changes are very large in magnitude, though.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely interesting. I feel like the TF changes maybe could make people play them a little bit more. You know, getting more attack speed on your E, like the bonus attack speed, is always going to be like a little bit nice for just pushing the wave and stuff. And then they're reducing the cooldown on your ulti, right? Which is like generally why you're picking this character. So like maybe people could use it. I know a few people have told me they think it's actually a pretty decent matchup into Talia. So that would be kind of interesting if it gets a little bit of a buff, Talia gets a little bit of nerf. Like maybe there's some wiggle room there to actually play it into Talia and be able to kind of like match roams and stuff.
Into Talia.
Yeah, this was like a few people were telling me they think that it's a good matchup.
Really? I don't see it. Maybe.
I think part of the idea is that you're supposed to be able to match the push like pretty well, and then because Talia is pretty low mobility, like you have pretty good gank assist and can kind of pressure, and then you can match roams with Destiny and stuff like that. I think is generally the like thought process. I didn't really ask for any like specific details about it, but just a few people have mentioned they think TF is like pretty good and could potentially be good matchup there.
Maybe I know that they lowered the cost of rapid fire. Like it wasn't super recently, but it used to be like 3K and now it's 2,600 again. So, and TF with rapid fire is so annoying. Holy hell! That I hate playing against that thing. It's like he's just running around. He's doing his like Rod of Ages. He's a pseudo tank. He doesn't do any damage, but he'll just gold card you from 800 range in 2 seconds stun. GG's spamming it. Like oh my god. I hate that champion.
Teleport on your head. Now you've been ganked.
He doesn't even need to teleport on you. He just throws it at you from across the lane. It's so disgusting, actually. But
what about Lee Sin?
He doesn't really do much damage. I think
you like the Lee Sin one?
I think that is a pretty good change for him. I remember I think his Tempest used to be 35% slow at one point, and he was really strong, so they nerfed it to 20. And that's actually pretty huge because it's the ability you max last, right? Like pretty much everyone's been doing Q then E or Q then W on Lee Sin for a long time. And this makes his early ganks a lot stronger because, you know, he'll just like ward jump on you or flash on you.
And then E.
And then that slow is big enough that he's pretty much going to confirm his Q off of it. I think going from 20 to 35 makes it kind of like you just can't dodge it anymore. So you're going to have to flash it. Also, like they lower the cooldown of it. So his clear speed's going to go up a little bit. I think we'll see Lee Sin, which is cool. Especially with Fearless. I think Fearless makes it so, you know, some of these smaller buffs could actually be more relevant because it's like all of a sudden,
game 4, game 5.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many more champions you're playing. It's no longer just like, okay, this champion's only going to be viable if he's literally better than everything else.
Yeah.
Or, you know, like anything available. But now so many champs get banned out over the course of a series. So it's like, you know, you're going to those second, third string picks. So.
That's a really good point.
Yeah, because, I mean, MSI is all best of 5s, right? So it's like you can be the 8th or 10th best pick in a role, and that's enough to get played in a game 4, game 5, right?
Yeah, I mean, we already saw Inspired bring out the Lee Sin in a game 5, and it looked pretty good when he was playing it. I don't think the champion's weak at all right now, so I would for sure expect to see him played.
It's definitely interesting because I saw some people tweeting, you know, just when they say, "Oh, great, like Lee Sin buffs again, like only champion in the game that gets paid attention to for pro," and like all this kind of stuff, and just it's interesting because I feel like Lee Sin is such an iconic champion and is pretty beloved for the most part for pro, but I started seeing more people just kind of being negative about the buffs, I guess through the lens of like, oh, why does it always get the attention? Why does Lee Sin always get the buff? That kind of feeling. But I'm so unbothered by it, especially because it is Fearless, right? It's like I can see the complaints more if it's like, okay, Lee Sin gets buffed and now Lee Sin's going to be in 100% of the games going to an international. It's like people would always say that about Corki Azir would always get buffs going into international, and then it's just that's the mid lane matchup every time. But I'm way less bothered by changes like that now because we have Fearless. And I do generally like the direction that they've taken. I feel like it's been a couple years now of this where they've just done more gradual balancing changes, right? Because I do feel like you go 5 years back or whatever, and there used to be way more of these changes that were just like massive buffs or nerfs, and they would just get like way overshot one way or the other, and then they'd have to like try to like hotfix it or pull it back, and champions would just be getting headshot, and then they'd be like giga OP, and like that. I think the game
is actually in a really good state balance wise. Lately, I've been pretty happy with it, and it's certainly not an easy thing to do. So, props to the balance team for that for sure. And I don't know, I think on the Lee Sin point, you kind of mentioned it when you were talking about it, but it's like he is just a cool champion. He's a mainstay of pro. So you look at some of the top highlight plays of all time, and a lot of them are Lee Sin. You know, he can do cool stuff. He's got like hidden mechanics and like really hard to execute combos, which I think makes him super interesting. It's like you watch somebody do it and you're like, I'm gonna go try this in solo queue, and you just completely butcher it, and you're just like, oh, okay, I guess like it makes what he did more impressive.
He's one of the oldest champions, and I think one of the best designed because he's been one of the most popular over the entirety of League of Legends, basically. Right now, he is the most picked jungler. I usually fluctuate with him and Viego. Both are like super duper popular. But yeah, he's just a really well-designed champion from the very beginning because of that factor of there is a lot of skill because there's so much movement with him. Yeah,
definitely. I think anytime there's champions like that are just so popular, even if they're not good, it's a testament to like, you know, people just like them. Jungle, definitely Lee Sin, Viego. The other ones that always stand out to me is like Lucian and Ezreal. I feel like those champs could be completely horrible and you'll still see them all the time.
I feel like that way about Yasuo.
I mean, Yasuo is he's a different breed.
But he's really popular, right?
He is for sure, but he's just Yasuo, dude. That's like that's the protagonist pick right there. That's the guy who's like it takes a certain personality type to lock in Yasuo.
That's fair. But I'm excited. MSI is going to be coming up pretty soon. It's kind of crazy how fast it's actually coming up because we have finals obviously this weekend, and then there's 1 weekend off, and then MSI is already starting. So it is going to be pretty soon for MSI to kick off. We are going to take a quick break though, and then we'll be right back after this.
Ready, set, go!
I'm at 47%.
Oh, I'm on 63%.
Man, I'm at 50%. Boom! 80%. Winner!
The Kia EV9 can go from 10% charge to 80% charge in just 24 minutes with DC fast charging.
Welcome back to The Dive, driven by Kia. It is now time to talk about the LTA Split 2 Finals weekend. The big surprise, of course, is that Shopify is there. People can say that they, believed in Shopify against TL or 100 Thieves. That's totally fine. But still, if you look at power rankings from the beginning of the split, no one thought this team was going to be a top 4 team, let alone a top 3 team, let alone going 6-1 in the lower bracket. It's not just that they beat 100 Thieves, they swept 100 Thieves. It's not just that they beat TL, they 3-1 TL. So it is pretty crazy, I think, the turnaround this team has had. And, they got 6 wins in the total split, right, between positioning and group phase. And now they're 6-1 in their last 7 games in the lower bracket against 2 teams that were power ranked both above them.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you look at the power rankings at the beginning of the split, even if you look at the actual games that they played at the beginning of the split, you're like, nope, I would not expect them to be here. And they say it themselves all the time. Like Fudge was on this most recent of Pros episode of Pros as well, talking about it. And like his individual performance has gotten so much better. The team's performance has gotten so much better. And I find it so interesting that they all the players always credit DeMonte pickup as well. People like memed on it when DeMonte swapped from FlyQuest over to Shopify, but they're like, oh, DeMonte is going to meet back up with Pal Fox and Contracts, and they're going to go like Super Saiyan again and like bring back the energy vibes. And okay, we're kind of like actually living in that timeline now. Like Pal Fox got a pentakill, and then Pal Fox is, having some good games now when he had some really rough stinkers at the beginning of the split. And Contracts and Fudge are playing super duper well. Like those two, the top and jungle have had a lot of carry performances.
Yeah, it's been an awesome glow up to see because I was not believing in this team whatsoever. Even just like the first split and then most of this split, honestly, up until playoffs, they looked really, really rough. Just all over the place. Like individual play was not good. Team play was not good. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe I think DeMonte stonks are so high.
Yeah.
He's actually had the most insane track record being this like coach / vibe guy for teams. And it just goes, I think it just goes to
/ masseuse.
Yeah, exactly. He was giving some crazy massage on stage. But I think it goes to show how much that stuff can affect teams. And I've always been a strong believer on that. Like if you have good vibes, if people are just having a good time, like you're having fun, you want to be there, you're going to play so much better. Just take the stress out of it. Just have fun, you're going to do way better. And so it's sick to see them doing well. And Pal Fox has been having some good games as well, like his LeBlanc against APA Ziggs. He just like actually destroyed him.
Yep.
Which is sick because like nobody's playing LeBlanc at all. He said in his
He's
interview.
getting buffed.
Yeah. He said in his interview, he played it like once in the last month or something. Yeah. And so you can just whip out a tough to play champ like that. He actually CS'd really well, and I swear that champ is impossible to CS on. And just completely smashed APA. So I'm happy to see Pal Fox doing better because it's kind of been a while. I was happy to see him do well initially, but then he had so many rough games in splits and, coming on years at this point. So, I'm happy to see him bounce back.
Pal Fox is a bit of an enigma to me, though, because it's like you're talking like all those bad games were in the past. He had like 2 games in this series where he's down 3K individually, right? Like the Victor game and the Oriana game, he was giga behind APA, and then he absolutely stomped him in the LeBlanc game. The LeBlanc game was monstrous, and he seemed super excited about it in his interview. He was talking about it. He tweeted about it. He's like, "This, the Ziggs pick is so fraudulent. Like I've had this pick ready for years. I'm finally, glad I got to bring it out." Like obviously, like he had been believing that this should be the answer anytime, they do bring out the Ziggs, and he's able to prove that. And like in the end of his last series, he had that Victor game, obviously where he got the pentakill. And, like these final games in both series were amazing, but he has also had some of the like most like colossal leads given to his opponent. Like he's so far down in so many of these games, right? Like it's really weird to see like winning that Xerath game, winning the Annie game in the previous series where he was down, 100 and something CS, 140 CS or whatever it was. Then like he lost one of these games where he was monstrously behind, but I think he won the Orianna one, the Nico one. He did like the Nico game from APA where he was like up 3K, they lost.
Yeah.
And Contracts had some monster Sejuani ults. I thought he played sick to actually stop the Nico engages. Like kept hitting him with Sejuani ults on the engages, and they just 100-0 him. But Palafox is a bit of an enigma to me because he just has these amazing games and then he has these absolutely horrible games. And it's funny listening to Bvoy talk about them because he was saying, I think he said this on Pros, but he was saying this I think on the desk and stuff too, just how Contract and Palafox, like within even the same game, can be like both the best mid laner jungle duo and the worst mid laner jungle duo in the league, like within one game. Contracts, I do think in this series didn't really have any of those like really bad moments or anything. So I think he is super deserving of that credit, but it's just been cool to see how much better this team seems to have gotten. I feel like Bvoy is also playing a lot better again. Seos, I think, has been playing very well. It does feel like a full team effort. It's not just like one guy dragging them across the finish line or anything. And it's been really, really cool to see.
Yeah, especially it's nice to talk about the bottom lane now too, because we don't really. Everyone always focuses on Fudge and Contracts, the top side, because they're carrying.
Yep.
But Bvoy, we had this big discussion about. Oh man, he's playing a lot of the like not get your hands dirty style.
Yeah.
When Shopify were not doing well, but especially his Lucian games that he's been throwing down, he has been getting in there and he is doing a lot of trades. He's like getting the value that you need to get out of Lucian to make people be like, okay, fine. We respect this guy on Lucian because that is a fairly rare thing. Not a lot of the players can do that. So it is really cool to see that kind of killer instinct for him and like getting in there and having some high damage numbers too.
It definitely. I've been somewhat critical of Bvoy this split in general. Like I think he's had games where he looks, pretty weak. Having like KDA moments. I think he had a Senna game somewhat recently where I felt like the way he was playing was like super overly safe.
That was the one against SR maybe? Or sorry, against 100 Thieves last week.
Yeah. He ended up having
always playing versus
he had a really good that's their biggest enemy.
It's always them versus themselves.
Honestly true with this team more than some others. But even that game, like he ended up with a really good score, but just watching him in the fights, it was like, it wasn't top tier performance or anything like that. But I will say I think he's been stepping up a lot in these games, and like his Lucian game that you mentioned was really insane. I thought he was like pretty much the reason why they won that game. It's super hard when you're playing Lucian up against like a giga-fed Nico who's actually just trying to one-shot you and will one-shot you.
Yeah.
APA was like, I think he started 5-1. He went like the most one-shot build ever. It was like Rocket Belt, Shadow Flame, Death Cap, and he had it super early. So it's like the entire time you're playing this game, you're playing a champion who is really squishy and has to flex on your opponents. And then it's like every single minion could be this guy who's going to flash on you and actually one-shot you. It's like actually such a difficult role to be in. But he was having like insane moments where he was just like, I think the game kind of swung on that one mid fight where he was able to just like kept eating in and hitting people with rapid fire and just chunking them out. So yeah, I think he's definitely been playing a lot better, and it's been cool to watch.
Yeah, it's just so interesting because, especially I think when you look at it in the context of the TL series, where I think almost everyone was saying, okay, yeah, TL is having issues. Like TL could actually lose. I don't think it's like the biggest upset of all time because based on current form, people were pretty split on the series. Even from our prediction graphic, it was like pretty half and half, I would say, between the pros predicting one team and the other. Like most people were saying Shopify's playing better in scrims, but maybe TL would win anyway because they have more experience. But pretty much everyone I talked to was like, yeah, but the TL bot lane is way better, and like the TL bot lane is going to do way better. And it didn't really pan out, I think, in that way in the series. Obviously, like you can talk about like team gap or whatever, various things that are going on. But I do think Bvoy played really well. I think Seos was really good with a lot of his engages. I think Seos is actually playing quite consistently over the last couple of weeks. And so it's cool because, I remember before the 100 Thieves series, I was like, am I crazy thinking like this team that just got 3-0'd could actually beat 100 Thieves? And we're like, no, okay, no, not really. And then last week, I still thought TL would win, to be honest, but I thought it could be really close series. And now I'm like, how far can they go, right? Because it just kind of keeps happening, and they keep improving, they keep getting better. And now they are obviously going up against one of the highest echelon teams, right? Because it's only Cloud9 and FlyQuest left. Those are the clear 2 best teams from the split. They just had a 5-game series where C9 could have even easily won. Like game 2, they could have easily won.
Yeah.
Where they had the Baron, and then it was part outplay from FlyQuest, part misplay from C9, whatever you want to call it. But that could have been a 3-1 for C9, and so now it's like, can Shopify even go that much further and challenge one of the top 2 teams in the league?
I think they could, honestly. I think I would still, if I was a betting man, I would still put my money on C9 or FlyQuest over Shopify, because I think in general they're just stronger. But it's not by a big margin or anything. I would not be surprised at all if Shopify did somehow just win the split. I don't think it's likely, but I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility, because I think they just have so much momentum right now. And I think that I think teams are really strong when they can come from being at the bottom, just being so bad, and then ramping up like this, because it's kind of you realize what works for you. I think you get a lot of trust in each other when you can overcome those kind of things, and you don't have to deal with these teams who've never gone through hardship. I think sometimes teams have honeymoon phases if they start out really strong, but then as soon as anything goes wrong, it kind of falls apart. So I think that helps a lot in a series, because even if anytime you're in a best of 5 series, something's going to go wrong for you, right? Nobody's going to have a perfect series. Things are going to go wrong, but your ability to recover and bounce back, or just be okay, this game is lost. Let's focus on the next one. It's really big, and so yeah, I think they could do it.
Yeah, I have some funny anecdotes from actually multiple players that we've had on the analyst desk. Well, the first one is Bvoy, which I think he said on air also when he was talking about Shopify. Or actually, he did say it in the pros episode when they were talking about it later, too. He was like, this team, they never give up. We stomped them so hard in scrims, and even if they're 12,000 gold behind, they just keep making us sweat. And it's I don't know, is something wrong with them? What type of thing? But he really said it as a respectful thing. He really respected about them. Even though, I forget what the numbers were, but they beat Shopify a lot in their scrims. But he was still they still, they never go up. They still make you sweat, because they're still gonna go for all these late game picks and try and make some comeback plays. And so that goes to enforce what your kind of your feeling of this team is. But also, I know, because I talked to Huhi a little bit, and he had some anecdotes about when he was playing with Palafox and Contracts, and he was very surprised. This is one of the only teams that actually argues about plays and talks about plays that have happened within the game. Usually, most teams
I hate when people.
Usually, most teams will do it afterwards.
Yeah,
and so he was and he said it respectfully too. He was well. He doesn't like that style,
Yeah.
But he was well, but that works for them. And so that was one of the things he was really surprised about, because I would say, yeah, the majority of teams, by far, the vast majority of teams will always save everything till after, because they're we got to focus on this game. But I don't know. I thought that was a really interesting anecdote. If there's something where they're able to talk through and work through things during the game, maybe that also contributes to some of their games look really chaotic. Some of their games have been really controlled though recently,
Yeah.
which is a little change that I want to bring up for them, because they've been getting credit of being described as a juggernaut in some of the situations too, and a lot more of the games have been a lot more controlled than we saw at the beginning of the split. So this is going to be definitely a banger. Also, because the way that our splits have gone with the formats, this whole year, these two teams have only played each other one game, and it was
because they're in opposite groups and stuff.
In split 1, they didn't play each other at all. And in split 2, it was just the best of one. That was the second best of one
phase.
at the beginning of the split. So that was a decently long time ago.
Yeah.
So now we get a highly anticipated matchup here.
It's really interesting because obviously we heard about the Shopify FlyQuest scrims from contracts. This was like, I don't know, 2 pros episodes ago or whatever. We said where they went 0-10. But on this most recent one, Bvoy was saying that like Shopify was doing way better against them now in scrims. He was like
1-9.
well, he said I still think we were positive, but I'm not sure. And then like Bvoy was just, or Fudge was like, yeah, you guys were still positive, but it was like made it sound as though it was actually close now, like in scrims, which is pretty surprising because most people tell me that FlyQuest is just absolutely impossible and they just rinse everyone in scrims.
Yeah.
And they're really frustrating to play against because it just makes you feel like you're shit and nothing works and blah blah blah. So it's pretty crazy to see how much they've been getting better. And I also thought it was funny Bvoy was talking about how he just feels like too many teams kind of get impatient and like end up playing fast and making mistakes and all these kind of things. And he's like, Shopify is just the slowest team, and they have basically what he thought, like kind of like he was saying like, oh, like crack the code or whatever on like how to play in the league, which is just like he thinks you should just draft strong, cohesive comps and play really slow and basically like allow other people to make mistakes kind of thing. And that kind of talks about, you know, their like super long game times and stuff, right? That the Lucian game from this last weekend was what, 50 something minutes? Like,
yeah,
it was 54 minutes and 14 seconds. Like they've had some ridiculously long games. They've had a number of 50-minute games, 2 games of this split that were over 50 minutes, and then a number that were like 48, you know, 53.
If you go too far back into the Dignitas ones at the beginning, though, those were long for other reasons.
Of course. But they've always been, I think, okay playing that super long style and dragging it out, like you were saying, what Bvoy was mentioning as well, about just like never giving up and making you kind of like mentally, scrape for it. So, yeah, I mean, it's also, like you were talking about, Meteos, when a team kind of has really good vibes, and especially when you are the underdog, I feel like you're almost in just like a win-win situation. Not saying they don't care about the result of the series, of course you do, but the pressure is way more on C9. You know, it's like you've already outperformed expectations. Like it allows you, I think, to play with a little bit less pressure. And so I do definitely still favor Cloud9 because I do think they just kind of have better individual players. But Shopify, I think, has gotten to a point where they're a strong enough team where it's like if they are on a good day and Cloud9's not on a good day, like they could win this series.
I think this has been years in the making for Palafox, where he was getting a little bit too much respect that he had to sandbag for a while to be the underdog once again. I think he mentioned it himself. He's like he's more comfortable being the underdog.
He almost sandbagged too hard.
He's really
it's hard to pull out.
He's walking the line for sure, but you know you just got to make people doubt you, make people think you're not good, and then you know
CLG's back.
Yeah, you got him. That's his comfort zone. So yeah, I don't know. They seem kind of scary right now.
Yeah, my prediction is going to be really weird because I would say, if Cloud9 win, I think Cloud9 like 3-1 or 3-0. But if it's a 3-2, I feel like Shopify will win. Because kind of like you're saying, if it goes long, they don't lose energy the longer these games go. They play 50+ minute games. Like Bvoy was saying, they never give up. If it goes full 5 games, they're gonna try and run a marathon versus you. And like their vibes are always immaculate because they have DeMonte plus they have the underdog buff. And so they like the longer the game goes, the more I would be like, wow, I think Shopify will upset them. So if the series is quick though, I think it will be because Cloud9 make it quick. And so I think that Shopify should, take the full fearless strategy into account, where you do stuff like trying to pick away Thanatos champions and stuff like that, use them early, so then they're not going to be available for later, and like try and play the long con in a best of 5. And that Thanatos matchup actually is one of the big reasons why I actually think Shopify are way more competitive now than previously, because Fudge is playing so well. Him and Bvoy both actually said, and this is also to be expected from other top laners, but they're like, Thanatos is overrated. I don't know about all this MVP stuff.
Really?
They still respected him a lot, and they're like, he's still really good. They just thought it was a little overblown. Bvoy even said himself, he was like, yeah, I thought it was overblown, and then I played poorly and made him look like the MVP anyway. But at least in a couple of the games.
I was gonna say I feel like that's again going to be an area where like Cloud9 has an advantage because I think FlyQuest when they play against C9 they like as a team they really understand what Thanatos is going to do and they kind of like work as a team to not let him do it with whether it's like draft or whatnot. But I don't know. I think Fudge had a good series against an underperforming Impact, but I think Thanatos is going to be way harder. And I think if he goes into it for some reason underrating him, like it might be a bit of a top gap.
Fudge also did really well against FlyQuest when they played against FlyQuest too, though.
Yeah.
So it's like it's not like he's like only been good against Impact, but like I hear you. I definitely think that Thanatos is the better laner. I think maybe you can give Fudge an edge like on tanks and things like that. I think he looks pretty comfortable when he's played tanks, but I do think it's pretty hard to debate that Thanatos is going to be scarier on like Ambessa and these types of like meta carries and stuff. I definitely think he looks really, really strong on it. I am so interested to see what kind of approach they take to the draft though, because my expectation was in the FlyQuest C9 series was that in the early games that they would just try to like match meta picks and then in the late games make Thanatos play like weird champion versus weird champion, where I thought Bvoy would have this really big advantage. But what they ended up going for was just they let Thanatos blind pick all the OP meta champs and Bvoy just had an answer for everyone. And like that was their strategy instead. So I thought that was a kind of an interesting approach. And maybe their read is that like they actually can't get Thanatos to a point where he's uncomfortable. So it's pointless to try to like, pinch the meta champs or like take them away and things like that. But I did think it was interesting, and I still am curious to see if Shopify will do the same kind of thing or if they will try to attack them in a different way. Because I do think you can, not necessarily like just Thanatos or whoever, but like you can try to really play in a way where in the early games you're just like sharing someone's champion pool and then going outside of the champion pool later, right? Especially if you're willing to do some like the weird flex picks. It's like if you're willing to do like Rumble support and things like this and like take champions and put them different ways, and you're like, okay, we could play like Jace mid and Rumble support and then I'll play Gnar top, and then like he plays Renekton, and then in game one there's like 4 of his champs gone or whatever. I just think that to me that's like such a fun thing to think about. So I'm curious to see if there will be any evolution there, especially since some of the games for Bvoy obviously really didn't work, like the Shen and the Nidalee game. The Nidalee game I think especially was rough because he just looked useless the whole game. He just like got beat 1v1 early by the Renekton, and then it was like, okay, well now you're useless forever. The Shen game was kind of like I don't know, like obviously it wasn't a good game, but also he got mega chain ganked by Blabber, which I think was really smart. And then Thanatos absolutely put him in the ground, like put everyone in the ground once he had the lead on Ambessa. He looked incredible. So I'm not trying to like take away from him, but sometimes you die to some ganks and the game's going to look really rough. But yeah, no, I'm just really interested to see what people's approach this weekend is going to be like, if they're repeating what FlyQuest did or if they are going to attack the pool.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the C9 versus FlyQuest game, I just feel like FlyQuest had a really good approach to dealing with Thanatos that I don't think Shopify is going to be able to do as well. Because, if you look at it, I don't know if it was every single game, but like almost every game they were giving Bvoy counterpick against Thanatos, and also just sort of trying to cheese him with these weird picks, right? It was like, I talked to Thanatos right after their series, and I was asking him about like, the game 1 draft. I actually thought C9 did some really weird stuff. That one, it was like, they were red side. They had the opportunity to counterpick top
that
lane.
first draft was horrible. They like counterpicked themselves in all 3 lanes.
Yeah,
on red side.
Yeah, it was.
That was one of the worst drafts I feel like.
It was a mess for sure. But I asked him about it because I remember you have talked about the Cho'Gath counter into Yorick multiple times, and I was like, Thanatos was like, is this a matchup like you expected? You played for? He's like, yeah, I've played it, but like, he's so good at Cho'Gath. Like he kept eating my wife.
When I even said it in the game, I was like, he does not know this matchup at all. Because the way you're actually supposed to play that is you literally don't summon your ult until he uses Feast.
Yeah.
And because it's beneficial for both of you to sit on the cooldown if nothing is happening, because then Cho'Gath is getting no Feast stacks.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like, as soon as he hit 6 and pressed R, I was like, he doesn't know the matchup. because then Bwipo instantly at level 6 gets just like feast the ult for free, get huge value. So it's way better to actually not have them use it. And the way I've seen people play this is that they only use it like if a gank is coming, or if they're like gonna die. There's like some reason that it's gonna get you something big. But yeah, I think blind pick Yorick is absolutely criminal. Like, I just think there's a lot of good matchups into it. It's not even just Cho'Gath. Like, Aurelia is obviously niche. No one plays Aurelia in Pro, but like that one is legit unplayable. That is like one of the worst matchups I've played of like any champion. It's horrible. Camille, Fiora, Sion is insanely hard. Mordekaiser is pretty tough. Like, Sion is almost impossible, it feels like, because you get full passive stacks from the Soul Furnace on HP for every ghoul that dies.
Oh, wow, yeah.
So you, like at like 16 minutes, Sion just has 1500 bonus HP from killing your ghouls. Like, there's a lot of matchups that are horrible. So yeah, I was really surprised by their game 1 draft. It just felt like they didn't know the matchups and they were just maybe trying to take a Bwipo champ away.
Yeah. I mean, it was definitely. I don't know exactly. Like, I don't usually expect them to go super like in depth onto their draft strategies. Which, I mean, why would you do that?
Yeah.
But obviously, I don't think it really panned out the way that they'd hoped, for sure. And then even game 2, I think FlyQuest did something that teams had not been doing, which is giving Thanatos Gwen. He's one of like the only people actually playing her, and people are terrified. For the longest time, it's been everyone's like Yone Gwen ban against C9 every game, no matter what. And so they gave Gwen. They picked Set into it, which I think Set is sick right now. He's actually like. I think he is insanely strong.
Kobe and I were talking about how like we always want to ban him and stuff like that.
Yeah, dude. I've actually been getting like, I haven't played a ton of Silky lately, but I've been like spamming Set on my top lane account, and it is so fun. And he is so strong. I swear he does infinite damage. So they picked that into the Gwen, and then I don't think it was like a hard lane counter, but I think the way that FlyQuest plays the map mid game is so ahead of everyone else. Even when I was talking to the C9 guys about it, they said between like minutes 10 and 18, like that mid game section for FlyQuest, they just get huge advantages out of nowhere. He said they're like very efficient. They're hard to read as far as what they're going to do. And I think one thing they mentioned too is that like their team was really good at playing independently of Inspired. Like a lot of teams, it's like super predictable. Their jungler is going to be with their team and they're going to be doing stuff together, but FlyQuest will kind of just like spread out and everyone's pressuring on their own, which is really good. And I think like the lane swaps, Thanatos just got like insanely behind. At one point he was like down almost 50 CS or something, just due to like bad lane allocations and FlyQuest just pressuring really well.
So talked about that on pros too. We
Yeah,
just thought their lane assignments were super bad, or Thanatos was getting totally starved, and then Annie's just like farming 1v2 without being pressured, and like he thought. I also thought Thanatos was trolling with his build. Like I think Bramble, like at one point he had spent he had over 1,000 gold of items spent or whatever, and he had Bramble Vest glowing moat as his items.
Okay, I asked
Bramble
him about
Vest is
that.
horrendous versus Set.
I asked him about that, and he said he does it because Ben does it. Which I mean,
That's a horrible reason.
it is, but
That's
he
horrible.
basically said that like in the matchup, if you're against top 80 jungler as Gwen, it's pretty much like you only need one thing to go right for you in the game to be able to take it over, and so he just plays like he builds armor. And if you compare Bramble to the other, like basically your early game armor options as a top laner is like Seekers, which is insanely expensive and kind of like a stopwatch. So like I don't think that's a very good rush. Steel Caps, which is super expensive and less armor. So I think Bramble's actually like pretty cost effective for the stats you get. Obviously, it's like it's not really a component you're doing anything with, and the healing reduction is not that much value against that.
Warden's Mail is actually really good, but
Yeah, that's true.
then your stuff you're building into is a little bit weirder.
I mean, if you want pure defense, Warden's Mail is like way better.
Goated.
I feel like you can just sit on like Boots cloth armor and build tabbies later, or sit on a cloth armor if you feel like you desperately need it, and just build towards an item. Because just I like so much of the power for Bramble is in the heal cut, right? And it's like Set is not healing very much, and like if he is, it's like off of Conqueror stacks and stuff. It's like you're getting almost no value there. I mean, if you really desperately think you need that extra armor, you could literally just buy 2 cloth armors. and just sit on it, right? Like,
Yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily think it's the most insane thing ever, but
No.
he has done it multiple times, and I guess like Ben does as well. So I don't think he's trolling with it. Like, obviously, there's reason behind it, and that was his reason. So
yeah, I guess I just like hate the reason being because someone else does it. Like that is
Welcome to pro players.
That is a horrible
Welcome to
reason,
pro
though.
players.
Well, you're saying he's not trolling, but like that reason is troll. Like Danis was an incredible player, but like, you know, my reasoning being, yeah, I build this because this other guy builds it, and it's like, well, is it good? Like, is it gold efficient? You know, is it the best for the matchup? I don't know. He does it.
okay, I'll say anecdotally, in my experience,
So many
that is,
people
like
do that, yes.
99% of pro players, most people are
Yeah, because
just
Chovy built it, so I built
yeah,
it.
yeah, 100%. It's like with champions too. It'll be like, hey man, I think we should try this out in scrims recently. I'm like, oh, did it get buffed? You know, like
No, Faker
what
played
makes it good? Yeah, LCK played it last night. I'm just like, so what? Like, well, what makes it good? Why are we doing it? It's like Faker.
So see, you're on my side, right?
No, I agree with you.
Like this isn't
I'm not saying
this
it's
isn't like a Thanatos attack because so many people do this, but I just like that reasoning just
Dude, I think one of the ones that tilted me the hardest was I was on a team where there was like, I don't remember the specifics of the champion or build, but like I'd been seeing it in solo queue a lot, and I'm like, one of my teammates was like really good at this champion. I was like, hey, like I think this might actually be strong if you build this item. And he goes on like pro builds and he's like, yeah, nobody's doing it. I'm not gonna do it. I was like, you could try it. Like I've been seeing it a lot. Like it makes a lot of sense. Like it's strong for these reasons. He's just like, no.
Especially if it's something that is situational. If you don't know why it is good, then maybe you're not even using it for the reason that the good person is buying it. And you're just like, oh, the good person bought it, so I'm going to buy it. But like, it's something that only activates when the other person is super low or whatever, like sets passive or some shit. And you're like, okay, well, you know, I'm never even getting any value here. Or it's like some active item that you're using incorrectly. So yeah, I think that is definitely a frustration point. I feel like for a long time, because as long as I can remember, that people have given that reason.
Yeah, I mean, one of the funniest examples, and I always think back to this, is I remember this is years ago. Malzahar was like giga broken. It had gotten like crazy buffs in solo queue. It was like 55% win rate in solo queue. It was disgusting overpowered. I remember talking to a number of different LCS at the time mid laners and being like, "Oh, have you guys like tried out Malzahar? It's so like never work in pro play. Like it's so bad. They would never." I was like, "Okay," and then it got nerfed 2 patches in a row, like really big nerfs. Then Faker played it. And then overnight, it literally went to 100% pick ban in LCS. And it was like way weaker version of what had been before. And I was just like, you guys could have been playing this for so long.
Yeah, so I'm definitely on your side with this. I think it is really tilting. I'll say, like, to be devil's advocate, I think the reason why it's so popular is because League is, you know, it's a team game and you need to have like trust in your teammates and whatnot. Mm-hmm. And so I think one of the easiest ways to get people to trust something is to just point to other people who've been doing it, right? It's like with drafts and anything. It's like if you can point to an LCK team that is successful doing this champion, this build, this draft, whatever, it's, you know, fairly credible as opposed to just like, trust me, bro. Because like, if you trust me, bro, and you're like, hey, I cooked this up and you try it and it's terrible, it's like, okay, now they're not going to think it's good, and they're maybe going to doubt you in the future, being like, ooh, what about that one time you cooked something up? And so I kind of get it to an extent where it's like, you know, to get everyone on the same page, it's a lot easier to just kind of like try to model after like the most successful teams in the world.
Yeah.
So I understand to some extent, but I think it should definitely not be so like black and white about it, being like, oh, I can only do what LCK teams have done. I think it's definitely a good resource. Like you should look at what they're doing and like, you know, try it out. But if it's like the only way that you do anything ever is because Chovy's done it, then it's like, well, you know, maybe that's a little too far.
I've also heard the logic, and this made some sense to me, of just the idea that it's like there's only so much time in the day. You can't test everything. You can't try everything. So like you're just gonna do what someone else did, because it's like, well, yeah, maybe just like sitting on 2 cloth armors is better, and then one later, you know, becomes tabbies and one later becomes seekers or whatever instead of building bramble. But like I haven't tried it, so I don't know, you know, blah blah blah. So like I can definitely understand. I can definitely understand the reasons why it happens, but it's always just been something that is like is funny to me.
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely.
All right. What are your guys' predictions for this series then? Because I I don't know if mine even counts.
You're predicting three different things. You're like, if it's 3-0, it's Cloud9. If it's 3-1, it's Cloud9. If it's 3-2, it's Shopify. So
I don't even know if that counts. So I'll have to make a real prediction.
Yeah, I'd like to watch the series first and then make my prediction after I see how it pans out. No, I'm gonna go C9 for sure.
Yeah.
I would say, I would probably say 3-0, maybe 3-1, just because I think they're a stronger team, and I think Shopify could surprise everybody. I think C9, could have an off day or something. Because one thing that, I think is probably in Shopify's favor is that, like they were saying, they're a patient team. And I think one of the issues C9 has faced this season is like some really over-aggressive plays, especially from Blabber, where, patience I don't think is his strong suit. I think a lot of times it's really good. You see the angle, you go for it, you punish them. But other times, we saw his Sejuani, he called the banana combo, where he flashed in, Q flashed, didn't hit him with the Q flash, and then did
then ulted him.
point blank, melee range ult. It was
and nobody was there to follow.
His whole
up.
team was a full screen.
Everybody else was like a screen away from the dragon.
It was a pretty massive int. So I think that kind of thing, if you're looking at potential strengths for Shopify, if they're a patient team and you can get Blabber to pull the trigger early and you're ready for it, maybe that gives them an opening. But I still think overall C9's just super solid. And obviously, they didn't beat FlyQuest, but FlyQuest is just a good team. I think that FlyQuest is just better than every other team. So the fact that they were competitive with them, I don't think it'll look.
I actually wanted to ask you, since you said that about the Blabber play, because when I was casting that game with the Sejuani one, I was like, I need to hear what the comms were. Did you ask him about it? Because I was like, what was the desync? And it was just the play that he felt, and
he said he was trying to just get the big ulti onto Kog'Maw. Or was it Kog or was it someone else? I don't remember, but
it was
no, it wasn't Kog. It was game 5.
It was was it Ziggs or Trist?
It must have been Ziggs.
I think it was Ziggs.
Yeah. Sorry, so not Kog, but Ziggs. I think he said he wanted to get the big ulti as a way to just kind of start the fight. But then he also said when he looked at it again, it wasn't even a good idea to go for. Yeah. So he said it was just a total int, which Blabber's one of those players who's he's really smart about the game. Even though he'll do some really questionable stuff at times, he recognizes it and he's just I just inted it. So
that's also just League. You can't hesitate in some moments. The windows are really tiny, so it's more instinct than intellect.
Yeah, definitely. So obviously, just I don't think that's what he was trying to do, and it looked pretty bad, obviously. So I think they'll still have the edge for sure.
Yeah, I think I'm probably 3-1 C9. I definitely still favor them. I do think both teams, kind of funny enough, are feel somewhat similar to me now. In far as how they want to draft and how they want to play the game, seems relatively similar. I think Contracts and Blabber can both kind of have those crazy moments, good or bad sometimes. I do still think that Loki is more solid than Palafox, though Palafox has been having some really good games, and I think that's kind of an X factor. It's if Palafox is having some monster games, that could totally change the series, because he absolutely can carry games and has shown that, right? He can get back to that level. It's pretty crazy. But I think it's going to be really, really bloody. I think it's going to be really a fun series. Because both these junglers, I feel like to play in a kind of similar way and like to be in each other's face and like to start fights and stuff. So I think it's going to be good, but I do still think Cloud9 is the more solid team. But if you told me that Shopify won, I wouldn't be that shocked.
Yeah. Since I have to make the prediction now, I would say I would do the Cloud9 side of the 3-1. But like I said, if I redid my prediction in Game 5 before it happens, if it
goes to Game 5,
and then you ask, then I would be like, oh, I predict Shopify.
Yeah,
Fair
if
enough.
I can make my prediction after Game 5, I'll let you know then.
If I can make my prediction after they take Baron.
Actually, just give me a week to think about it after the series has concluded.
Yeah.
And then I'll let you know.
Yeah, a bit of a post-diction.
It should be fun. FlyQuest obviously is going to be waiting in the finals. We're all kind of saying we favor Cloud9. So probably going to have a repeat of that series. We obviously talked about it a bit, but like that was a 5-game series. That was kind of like what everyone was hoping it would be. I thought it was going to be way more competitive than the best of 3. Honestly, I was like pretty unfazed by the best of 3. I felt like people were getting way too negative on Cloud9 off of that series when it was just one series. They won the best of 1 earlier in this split. They won 2-1 in the best of 3 last split. It felt like, there was enough reason to think it should be competitive. So I was really glad that it was that kind of series because I do think if that is now a rematch of our finals, like it's really exciting, right?
Got full 5 games for once.
Yep. Yeah.
We can get 5 more maybe.
Yeah. And there's reasons to think that Cloud9 could definitely win. Like game 2, I mean, you can look at it both ways, right? I think FlyQuest was kind of in control. Then they kind of did a little throw, and then Cloud9 got Baron, and I think they should have won from there. But then they kind of, over-pushed in base and got caught, and Bobo kind of killed them all with the set W. But like that could have been a 3-1 potentially for Cloud9, So I do think it's really exciting. And on the other side, I think Bobo is going to be looking at this like. Hearing him talk about the AD in Italy, he's like, yeah, I thought if I played the Nidalee well, then Renekton would be bad. But then I realized Nidalee's just always bad. So it's like, I feel like he's probably not going to play the AD Nidalee again. I think that pick is probably out of there. The Shen game was whatever. Obviously, he got put in the ground. But like he had some pretty amazing games too. I do think he played really well in the Gragas game to neutralize the Gnar. His set game was like monster performance. I thought again the Yorick game he neutralized really really well with the Cho'Gath because if you're just eating the ult every time it pops up, guess what? You're way more useful in 5v5. Yorick like has to be winning the side lane to be valuable. So that was really fun to see. And yeah, I feel like mid lane was really interesting. It was just a fun series to watch, and it was very, very competitive. Yeah,
I also really think Busio deserves a lot of credit from that series and from the split overall. But like he just created so much pressure too. And if you go back and look at it with Fog of War on, he's never giving unnecessary information on where he is. And then that's going to put like the unseen pressure on the other like solo lane matchups and stuff too. I feel like he does that really well.
That's actually something that the C9 players I talked to said specifically. They said both Inspired and Busio are very good at not showing when they don't need to, which like you said, puts that pressure on. And it's one of those things that it's actually super hard to learn. One exercise I think is super useful for pro teams is watch one of your games back just from the enemy's point of view only. Like, watch their Fog of War, and sometimes you'll notice some crazy stuff. It's just like, why are we all just showing on this ward, right? It's like you sweep a ward, and then, like, someone that they had no info on hits it. It's like, yeah, I wanted some gold, but nah, you're just showing them that, hey, I'm right here.
So they don't have to feel scared at all.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's true. It's very interesting. I mean, Busio, a lot of the pros are giving a lot of credit to. And I do think he's played really, really well to be able to just like be wherever he needs to be at the right time. Like I think he is somewhat allows Inspired to play the style that he plays, where Inspired plays really, really farm heavy and is just going to like show up at the right time and team fight really well and be really efficient. And I know from talking to people, a lot of people feel like Busio kind of enables that by almost acting as like the
jungler. Ganks for you.
Exactly. Like he's going to be there to like cover lanes and push out at times where sometimes the jungler would normally be doing that. And I think that's really, really interesting. And Masu obviously has to facilitate that as well by it's like, okay, well, if your support's going to be roaming, you have to not kill yourself in the 1v2, right? Like you have to still, not get way behind and be able to be safe and stuff. So, I thought it was really interesting. And it's just like, there's so much, I think, from both sides. Obviously I mentioned like the AD Nidalee and the Shen draft and whatever, but also we touched on the game 1 draft, which was like, yeah, I think
Cloud9 from C9.
Red side, we had Yorick versus Cho'Gath top lane, which feels like very good for Cho'Gath. We had Ryze versus Cassio.
And Quads Cassio.
And it's Quads Cassio as well. And then their last pick, I guess, they did Rel into an Alistar.
Yeah. I was so surprised. I was like, isn't that a self counter?
I don't know. Literally all 3 lanes.
We talked about that as it was happening too, and we're like, well, okay, I guess we just get into the game then and see how that goes.
Yep. And it didn't go that well.
Yeah, I mean, it happens. I don't know. I think it's a lot easier from the sidelines to...
Of course.
When you see the team have a terrible draft, you look at it and you're like, that draft is trash. But from the like time I was doing the guest coaching with the airport, it's hard to draft, especially Fearless. At the time, it's like you're trying to remember what champions are available.
But this was game one.
Yeah.
This was game one, which makes it the least
but
defensible.
It's still Fearless.
Because it's a Fearless best of one.
I said it as it was happening when they were drafting.
Yeah, I mean, it was trash.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Stuff can happen. There's a lot of champs. Sometimes something slips your mind.
Yeah.
Or you're just like, you get totally focused on one thing and you lose sight of something else. Then afterwards, you're just like, oops.
And I fully agree. Like later into the series, it gets really hard to draft, and I do think it's cool because then it allows coaches to be able to actually showcase more of a skill. It's happened a number of times this series. I think it was it the 100 Thieves? Yeah, it was 100 Thieves game 3 against Shopify. That one where they had like absolutely unplayable draft where they did like the Riven into Ornn, and then they had this like Alistar Smolder into Varus and Nico. And
that was
like that was the most unplayable draft ever, right? So I do think it's interesting that we're getting to see coaches kind of like showcase their mastery over drafting.
My theory that I gave for game number 1 draft from the side of Cloud9 was that they came in with so much preparation that they kind of tunnel visioned on trying to play the strategy of super split push. Because all of their picks were like, when it started happening, I was like, oh, even with the first like 3 picks, I was like, wow, clearly every single champion is split push and globals here, with the Ryze and Yorick and the Pantheon and the Senna. And so if you look at that, if you looked at just their team comp, you'd be like, oh, that's a sick team comp. I see where that, I see what they're thinking there. And then they kind of like tunnel visioned on that and didn't respect the matchups that could unfold as much.
I have to tangent a little bit on that, but nothing has tilted me more than watching pro teams draft a split push comp and not split push. It is so crazy to me. It's like, I think everyone falls into this trap where, okay, I will say, obviously, split pushing comps are a lot harder to play than team fighting comps, right? Because there's a lot of things
with everybody.
Yeah, there's a lot of things you just can't do as a split push comp, and the main one, which it seems obvious to say, but in practice you never see it, is like you don't fight them. And so there was one opportunity in this game 1 that I actually thought C9 had an opportunity to kind of like get their split push set up, because it can be hard, right? It's like when you're playing split, you don't want to team fight. And that makes it easy for the other team. It's like, okay, all we want to do is like force a fight anywhere. If we group up and we start a fight and they respond to us, it's going to be good for us, right? And so what you want to do as a split push comp is just permanently have your side lanes pushed to make it so if they do want to group up, they're going to lose out. Like they're going to lose turrets, they're going to lose waves, they'll fall behind, whatever. And so I think it was around like 20 minutes when FlyQuest got like an uncontested Otacon. And, obviously that you don't want to give objectives for free, but it let C9 get this like deep split push setup, which is what you really need to be able to like start doing anything. But then they just recalled immediately. And so I'm sitting there being like, okay, so you draft split push, but you're not split pushing. What was the point of that? I think that I'm not a huge fan of split push comps in general. I think they are really difficult to pull off. But if you do it, I feel like you have to have the mindset of like, you got to kind of like do guerrilla warfare tactics, like play dirty, hide a lot, just accept that, you're going to die sometimes in the split push and just be okay with it. Be like, everyone has to pressure hard at the same time.
Yep.
And when they go for something, you have to be okay giving objectives too. I think what I see happens so much is just like, okay, we can't give them third dragon. It's soul point. So we're going to team fight them. And it's like, wait a minute. No, don't do that. Because the way I see it is just like, you have to give them objectives, but you should just make it hard for them to set up for it. Like, don't let them set up, like constantly maintain tempo, which is hard. Like that's the difficult part. Sometimes somebody like, I had to greed for this item. I took a bad recall. Now all of a sudden like our whole setup's gone. And so you need to be like really disciplined, be able to pressure really well.
Especially without vision, which is like, we're talking about like Inspired and Booster are so good at not showing. And if you don't see people and you over push, you can kill yourself. But also if your team is playing really defensive and you push, then they don't get anything if they attack you. And so it's like, it's really hard if you don't have good vision to be able to split push properly.
I think to do it, you have to kind of have that mentality of like,
everyone push.
Yeah, everyone push. And some people are going to die. Because I know in the past there have been good split pushing teams and they kind of have that mentality. It's like, okay, everyone's going to pressure at the same time. They can't stop everybody. Even if somebody dies, like you either kite them out, like you make them waste a ton of time for it, or you like, you can end up in like smaller skirmish team fight situations where like maybe you flank, but it has to start in like a really favorable situation, not just like, hey, they're grouped up as 5, we should group up as 5 and walk at them, because it's literally never going to work. It's just, that's the point of your champion. So I think it's hard. I think you just have to accept like, okay, you know, they're totally set up on this objective, just give it. Because I think you can give a lot of objectives and still win league games. I think that, you know, if they're just fully set up on Baron, you have to like group up and walk into their vision. If you're playing a split push comp, I would just say, okay, like you're going to lose that fight, like, and they will get Baron afterwards. Like, just give the Baron and just push. Like, get all your lanes deep push, make it so they can't do anything with the Baron. Like, cut off their waves. Like, just do really annoying stuff that doesn't involve fighting them. Because objectives on their own, like, it doesn't make your Nexus explode. It makes so they'll keep winning fights. But if you can get them in a situation where they never can fight you, you can still win. But I think that's like really hard to execute, and it goes against like the fundamentals of like, it feels bad to give an objective. It's like, oh, if we give this dragon, we'll lose. And I think that kind of baits people into doing like fighting with a split push comp, but that never works either. So I think I think people just shouldn't draft it if they're not okay with like, you know, giving objectives, pressuring together, accepting, you know, people
fully committing to the style.
Yeah, like you got to do some creative stuff. So it definitely triggers me when I see it. I'm just like, dude, like, why are we playing this?
But when it's done well, those are some of my favorite games to watch. Is when it is a team fight versus a split push, because you get to the point where it's like deciding how many and like which specific things you are giving up in order to accomplish your goals, and when do you like draw a hard line in the sand, or like what is too big. So those are always cool when you have the different styles.
Yeah, it is really interesting, right? And it's like you talk about Yorick. It's such a simple champion. Like, actually, anyone can play this as far as the mechanics, right? It's completely easy. But all of the stuff that goes into actually making a pick like that successful is all of this stuff that's kind of less seen, and it is really interesting. But definitely agree. It's like if you're gonna pick Yorick, and you're just gonna end up having him group and team fight. Like, what was the point, really, right? Like, you've got to just kind of commit to it, because he's pretty trash in that. It's going to be a fun weekend, though. I'm really excited for it. Even though we're all predicting Cloud9, I really do think it's going to be a competitive series against Shopify. And I think for finals, we're probably, well, I guess I'm on the FlyQuest side.
I want to see what the lower bracket finals looks like. But right now, I would be on FlyQuest side. Obviously, they sent Cloud9 down to the lower bracket, so...
Yeah, I think FlyQuest is for sure the favorites in finals, no matter who they're playing against. But doesn't mean they're going to win. I don't know. I feel like that extra stage game, especially when it's these back-to-back games, I think you get crazy momentum coming into finals because you just won. Like, you're warm on stage and you're coming off of a win. So I think that part could definitely give whatever team's coming in like the momentum advantage against FlyQuest. But I mean, obviously FlyQuest is just playing really well right now, so I would still say they're favored.
Yep. It's gonna be a really, really exciting weekend. Obviously, LTA finals for Split 2. We're gonna be crowning our champion. We're also going to be having that champion then go to MSI. So there's even extra stakes for the finals. It should be a lot of fun. That'll wrap it for us here on The Dive, driven by Kia. Remember, if you're watching us on YouTube, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss an episode of The Dive. You can also check us out on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and everywhere else you get your podcasts. The LTA North Split 2 finals begins this Saturday, June 14th at 1 p.m. Pacific as Cloud9 takes on Shopify Rebellion in the lower bracket finals. And then, of course, we'll be having the LTA North Championship on Sunday, where the winner of the first series will play FlyQuest. We'll see you all there.